しょう。
Hello and welcome to BrowEdit tutorial number 4. Today we'll be covering intermediate level light editing. And what we'll be looking at today is just a few things. So you actually have an idea of what you're doing when you're doing some light editing. So the topic breakdown today is looking at indoor and outdoor lighting. Have an idea about global lighting. Nothing too big about that, but just you have an idea about it. Also applying colors to lights, so you can decorate your lights, decorate your map with lots of color and make sure it blooms nicely. And in the end, I'll show you a bunch of light combinations you guys can use for your own maps, and it'll be combinations that I've been using, and it's great when it works out really nicely. So I'll show you that. But before we begin, I would like to address that you guys need to download another tutorial map, just like I did in the previous one. And it's called tut_4. And in order to get this map, I'll give you the link right now. So here are the links. We have Mediafire, Rapid Share File Front to sharedandSpeedy.com. If you cannot see this clearly, I'll make sure to post these links in the comment section of the video site so you cannot miss it, just in case you can't read it properly. But that's what you need to be downloaded. So download that, save it on your desktop, unpack the files, and start it up with BrowEdit. Okay? So let's go and get ahead and right into it. So here's the map right here. We have two sections in this map. The first one over here is indoor lighting, and over here we have outdoor lighting. If you press O, you should see a bunch of objects pop up. You are, however, missing a few because I just recently added this in just because it wasn't working as much as I wanted to. So just right now, if you can, quickly browse in the object menu and just grab a big tower. Okay, go to the third subdirectory in row and see this image right here. This is the one I just used, which will be for the center. So if you want to do that, go right ahead and paste that on. If you forgot how to paste an object, it's simple. Just Control and left click while you're in Object Edit. So make sure you're in Object Edit whenever you do that. Control and left click. Over here I also added a few more objects just because it wasn't working as properly. So if you want to grab, say I use a fountain in this case. I'm not sure if there's fountains down here, but you could certainly find something. It doesn't have to be a fountain. Oh, okay, I found it. Go to the second directory in row, and right at the bottom is a fountain, right down here. Click that, and it's the exact same thing as I used. And just paste it, again, Control left click, and just snap it to the grid, but like I said, by holding Shift and drag your mouse towards it. So you have some objects. And I'll be explaining you today, first of all, about global light editing, just because it's pretty important before you get into lighting. To get to the global lighting window, go to Windows, Global Lighting, and you don't need to worry about this too much, just because we're still in the intermediate level. But once you get to the more expert level, I will go in depth of how to change these values around so you can get your maps to look how you want it. But for now, keep these at values of 1. Why is that? Because 1 makes sure that your map is as bright as possible, so you'll have no problems making sure that your map is lit up as to what you want. Also, for the longitude and latitude angles, make sure they stay at 45. And for the ambient light, color should stay at 0.3, 0.3, 0.3, and 0.5. If you change these values to 0, right, all color will go away. Watch. Well, I kind of did the calculating light maps, but you see, this is without the color, and this is with color. Almost there. So you see how I kind of brightened that just a bit. So don't mess with those values just for now. We will get in depth later on, but this is what you should keep it as, okay? So now on to lighting. As you can see, I did already make some light calculations. So our goal today is to get something like this and something like this, okay? I'll talk about getting rid of these ridges so it looks a lot more smoother later on as well. So let's start off with how I actually did this. The first thing you need to do is to create a light, Control left click, just like that, right? And raise it up by holding Control, and then hold the left click button and drag it up by pushing your mouse down. Pushing your mouse up lowers it, like that. Okay? So I have actually two lights here. The first one is my sunlight. So I want you to press Enter on your light to go to the Property menu, and then click under name, and then type in sun. Make sure the color values are 0. Intensity, very important, must be 127. This is an ideal figure when it comes to brightening maps up, especially field maps and indoors. As for range, I would like you to put that to, I would say a decent value so you get the whole thing. And I use 500. And then light increment, don't touch that, 256. Light fall off, 0.01. And make sure you press enter on every single value just so it actually snaps itself in and saves properly. And then click OK. And I raise my sunlight pretty high above the map. Just make sure it's decent height just so it gets everything. Okay. And for the second light, I would like you to call it shadow. Keep the color values at 0. Reduce the intensity to 100. There's a reason for this. Whenever you use shadow lights, it must be lower than your sunlight. Absolutely must be lower. Because if your shadow is greater than your sunlight, then you're not going to see any sunlight, right? It's not going to show properly. Also, your shadow must be only slightly lower. If you have it too low, the brightness of your shadow will be pretty significantly lower. You will not be able to see your shadow. And like I said before, if your shadow is greater than your sunlight, or even if it just matches your sunlight, it could be insanely black. And you do not want to see black shadows. I've seen so many maps on the eAthena site with people releasing maps. Of course, they're new to it, and that's not a problem. By all means, they're learning, but still, their lights and their shadows are way too dark, and it doesn't really complement the map too well. So make sure it's just slightly lower. I say 100. 100's fine. 68 and 69 is also very okay for values. And also for the range, there's a specific reason why I have a range of 300 and why the light's so low. I'll talk about that in just a second. But 256, 0.01, and definitely check cast shadows. If you do not check it, then there's no real point to why it is not a shadow. It has to be a shadow by having this checked, okay? So, the reason why we have this low is because we want the shadow to just attack the top of this piece, across this piece, and down here. We do not want this shadow to be too high, or else you actually don't see it. In case you didn't know, the intensity of how lights work moves from the inside out. So these outside areas are actually pretty light in terms of intensity. So the more closer this is to the ground, the greater the intensity it is as it moves outwards. Okay, so just something to know. And after you have that pasted in, and this is pasted in, simply go to Generate, then click Calculate Light Maps. As you calculate light maps, you'll see a red bar, and it slowly goes up in values. As you see those numbers going up, that's your tiles. So it's calculating your tiles as it moves on. Also, if you want to see how it actually does it, just click Preview, and you'll see how well, it's going crazy, but anyways, what happens is it works like this. There's like a little calculating device that drags like this. Here, across. Here, across, and just keeps forming the layers as it goes on, all the way across your map. I've stated this before, but lights are not calculated on yellow ground. Okay, it is a great time saver when it comes to light maps because you have to be very patient when you do calculate light maps, depending on the complexity and the size of your map. So what I usually do is any part of the map that's not used. Let's say I had stuff here press L so you can see it without lights. L shows lights, right? So if I had stuff here and I'm like, you know what, I don't want this, right? Because it can be a problem if light is calculated on this, which it is, because it is a texture. So how do we actually get rid of these textures? It's pretty simple. Just grab a texture like this, put it over the existing texture, and then press backspace. And there it goes away. And you just made yourself no draw zones. So lights will not be calculated. You save a significant amount of time and a CPU usage when you're working on your lights. Okay, and light calculations. So let's go back to light maps. So you know how to do that. So we have an idea of how to calculate this. And what about over here? Do the exact same thing. Make a center light in the map called Sun 127. Make sure the range is large enough so you can certainly get the entire map. And make sure there's no check on cast shadow. And 0.01 for light fall off. Do not mess around with the max light increment, and make sure that it's pretty high above in the sky. So depending on how big your map is, you want the entire thing, right? And then lastly, the shadows should be like on the ridge. The reason why I have them on the side, as you can see, the shadows are always on the side of the maps, is because it works like this. Shadows move across the direction it's going into. Okay? When you have a shadow like this, wherever this half of the circles is calculating, it's what it's going to push into. So you see how the shadows are moving towards the direction that's being calculated. Nothing's being calculated on this side, only this side. So that's what you want to do. If I wanted to, say, move this over here, then watch the shadows push down here. So if I do calculate light maps, there you go. Shadows are now pushed towards this side. So that's how you can mess around with, say, changing the direction of flow with your lights, okay? And lastly, I want to show you, after you make a calculate light map, you would like to smooth it, right? You don't want crispy edges. It doesn't look realistic. It's really bad. So this is what you got to do. Go to Generate, Smooth Light Map, and type in a factor of 10. So type in 10 and click OK. Notice how it slightly just smoothed itself out. I want you to do it again, actually. Do it 4 more times. So you've done this a total number of 5 times. So do it 5 times. I find this to be really good because it just gets it really smooth and really nice, right? So let's just keep doing this. And that's my 5th time there. Okay, so you see how much nicer that is? You see how much nicer? It's all smoothed out. You don't have crispy edges. The lights are really nice. And if you really want to, if you want this to be a little bit brighter, you can certainly change the value there of your light to be slightly lower. So let's try that. Let's make it to, I don't know, 69. Let's try the 69. Yeah. Don't get any ideas, guys. So let's see here. So look, the lights have slightly decreased in darkness. Let's change it up a little bit more, actually. Let's try and make this 40. I wonder if this is a little too low to even be shown. Right? Okay. Yeah, it's not enough. So you can see it, but it's a little too much. Now, what if we actually match the value of the shadow with our actual sunlight, right? What if both values are the same? Let's take a look. You see, it's actually getting darker, right? I'm not sure if you've seen this, but many people have their shadows greater, like their intensity values are greater than their sunlight values. You should never do this, guys. Never do this unless you have a purpose for your map. For example, I've designed maps where it's like in a lava field and certain lava dungeons and stuff like that, and I purposely made the shadow greater than my sunlight just so it looks really dark and gloomy. So what if I had an outrageous high number for shadow, like 192, which is really high. You should never make your shadow 192. Never, ever. Okay? It is pretty dark, right? And if your sunlight is even darker, so is even lighter in intensity, let's say my sunlight was 70, you would see the most insane, darkest, probably shadows. So let's take a look. Yeah, you see how dark that is? That's insanely dark. You do not ever want that. Keep this at 127 and keep this at 100 or 69. Okay? So let me get to the shadow. Alright guys, you can also simply select your light by going to the menu and just click it. It really does help a lot to find lights. And make sure you label all your lights when it gets to a big map. Like small maps like this, you don't really need to label it because you can see it really clearly. But when it comes to like making a big map and you have like 30 lights or 40 lights or 50 lights, label them in sections. So this could be like section 1 light 1, section 1 light 2, and then over here could be like section 2 light 1, section 2 light 2. So you know what you're working with, right? Okay, so let me just recalculate this. And now we're going to move into adding color to lights.